Got to get it in. Does to Smith. Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
With the fourth pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the Houston Rockets select Amenthompson from Oakland, California, and overtime elite. With the 20th pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the Houston Rockets select Cam Whitmore from Villanova University.
We are here to fuel your Rockets draft news. This is the Rockets Fuel Podcast. I'm your co-host, Lachard Binkley. Of course, you can always find me on Twitter at Binkley Hoops. You can find out my written work over at the Dream Shake and SB Nation. And of course, we are here to talk Rockets draft. Probably one of the best Rockets drafts in the last couple of decades. And we are all excited here over Rockets Fuel. Of course, all the Rockets fans are excited. A night that most of us, nobody really expected the Rockets to be able to have two top 5 draft picks and without even making any moves. Before we get too far into it, I'll let my co-host introduce himself.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Vator. You can find me at Vator_H-Town on Instagram and on Twitter.
And also, before we get into it, I want to say congratulations to Vader. He made his radio debut yesterday on 97.5 and did a great job representing Houston and representing Rocket Fuel Podcast.
I appreciate it. Yeah, when they brought me in and they announced me as like the co-host of the Rocket Fuel Pod, I knew I couldn't mess up at that point. At first, I was like, okay, if I bomb and do terrible, it's just on me. I'm just representing myself. But when they said the name Rocket Fuel Pod, I knew. I was like, oh, okay. Now I'm not just. It's not just for me. It's the team. I was like, I can't embarrass Lachard on here. But I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Oh no, man, you did a great job, man. I listened to every second of it. It was great. So, I mean, it was just a great day overall. Of course, we're here to talk about the Rockets draft. We kind of expected certain things going into the draft. Of course, there was a lot of disappointment when the Rockets found out they were getting the 4th pick after the draft lottery. But I don't think outside, of course, of getting Wembanyama, I don't think there was a better draft by any team yesterday. Outside of the Houston Rockets, they were able to not only get Amenthompson, who it was kind of a foregone conclusion once Brandon Miller went 2. There was pretty much no way Scoot Henderson was going past 3. So once that happened, we all knew that the Rockets were going to go with Amen. And from there, it really got interesting. A lot of reports started to come out. Why is Cam Whitmore dropping? At first, it was before the draft, it was actually a debate on whether the Rockets would take Cam or take Amen. And once the draft started and the picks started to go through and you started to see, well, this team's not taking them, this team is not taking them. And then some people started to get excited. I remember posting like Cam at 20 with a question mark, and some people were like, oh, no, there's no way he's going to fall that far. And that was at like pick number 12. And then once you started getting to pick 15, 16, 17, then the excitement started to build and people started to believe, like, are we going to get Cam Whitmore, a prospective top 5 pick at number 20? And then a little bit of dread crept in at number 19 because we are all the Rockets fans' favorite team in the world, the Golden State Warriors, were at number 19. And a lot of people thought, okay, Golden State's going to do one more thing to rip the heart out of the Rockets fans, but they decided to pass on Cam Whitmore, and the Rockets were able to get him at number 20 without giving up any assets whatsoever. When Rafael Stone mentioned last night in a clip we're also going to play a little bit later, he had mentioned that they were willing to move up into the top 10 to get Cam Whitmore. That's how much they believed in Cam Whitmore, despite all the reports that were coming out. So, Vader, let me just start there. Just overall, what's your feeling on the draft? You were out at the draft night party. What was kind of the feeling in the building when they drafted Amen, especially once it got closer and closer to them possibly being able to pick up Cam Whitmore as well?
So when the first pick went in, obviously everybody knew it was going to be Wemby. So everybody booed Wemby, and we know why. You know, he had that reaction on the draft lottery. So they booed Wemby. So now at this point, everybody is on pins and needles trying to wait and see what the Charlotte Hornets are going to do. Unfortunately, Michael Jordan came through for us one more time, man. He had like the Vince Carter meme. I got one more in me, and he took Brandon Miller. So I know a lot of people were like not very high on Brandon Miller, at least not for his fit for this team. So I think a lot of people were saying things like, yeah, we beat the Brandon Miller allegations. We're so happy because they knew that, like you said, at that point, it's pretty much a given that Scoot Henderson was going to go top 3, which meant that Amenthompson was going to fall to 4. So once Brandon Miller went second, I think we kind of knew that we were going to get Amon. So we kind of celebrated that too. So by the time the pick actually happened, there was a celebration and everybody was excited, but nothing compared to the celebration. And this is really have anything to do with Amon, because we spent the whole day like doing Twitter spaces and posting things on social media, because as a Rockets fan, we've kind of learned to either cope or assume that the worst is going to happen, right? So, and for a lot of people, the worst thing that could possibly happen in this draft was to come out of the draft without either Amon, Scoot, or Wemby, because just because of the way that the team is comprised, a lot of people feel like we need a guy who can be an engine, a guy who can be, if this person reaches his ceiling, to be like a high-level all-star player. And I think a lot of people had Amenthompson, even though Brandon Miller was rated, on some people's boards to be a better prospect. But just based on like what the Rockets needed, I think most of the people that I know anyway, and most of the people that I've seen preferred Amon over Brandon Miller. So there was excitement, but like I said, nothing compared to watching the slide of Cam Whitmore, because Cam Whitmore is a guy who many people were saying like the Rockets were seriously considering taking this guy at 4, especially if James Harden were to come here. I mean, we had Rafael Barlow, very respected NBA draft insider, on the show a week or two ago, and he said as much. He said, hey, if James Harden comes back to the Rockets, Cam Whitmore might be the guy. So like you said, to see him slip, and then we're so close, and then Golden State is picking next right before us. And so I'm thinking, okay, if they take Cam Whitmore, like you said, I already despise the Golden State Warriors. I think most people in our fan base do not like them. But had they taken Cam Whitmore right there, I think that there would have been like some kind of catastrophic event happen, on Twitter. I think Twitter would have been shut down. But the only saving grace for me, I was thinking, why would they draft Cam Whitmore when you got like a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, who, you brought that guy in as an 18, 19-year-old project, super talented, super athletic, and he couldn't really carve out a niche in your rotation. So that was the one thing that I was like, there's no way Golden State takes him. So when they did not pick him, and then we were able to draft him, the draft party exploded. It was almost like, the best way I could describe it is it was like a mosh pit. Like people were pushing people. People started barking like dogs. It was really crazy. Like if you didn't attend the draft party, I definitely recommend. Hopefully we don't have to have another draft party where we're picking so high.
Hopefully not.
But the draft, like I was about to say go to the one next year, but hopefully we're not, you know what I mean? Like hopefully we're not in a position where we're having to pick, especially because like next year's draft isn't that great. But I think the Rockets put on a really good draft party this year. Last year's draft party was kind of it was a little rough. But I think they learned from some of the mistakes that they made at the party last year, and this one was actually really good. I saw Steve Francis, I saw Craig Ackerman, Ryan Hollins, Vanessa Richardson, Gerald Green was there, Calvin Murphy. Yeah. Like I can keep naming people, but like they put on, and they were all really accessible and they were nice. So good job, Rockets. And like I said, the draft, like, can you imagine coming out of a draft and getting two guys who you probably had on the top 7 on your board? And that's what the Rockets did. Like I can only like give Rafael Stone a like pat on the back. You know, I think he really pulled off something special. And it kind of reminds me of and he tried to trade up, but it kind of gave me the after it all happened, it kind of gave me the Houston Texans vibe. Yeah, because we got CJ Stroud and then we got Will Anderson like back to back, and it was very much like that for me, just because I'm such a huge fan, and I'm looking at like potential future lineups. You have a and this is down the road because Alma still needs work, and then obviously Cam Whitmore needs work. But you have a 6'7" point guard. You have who may be the best athlete in the NBA. If he's not, he's top 3. You have Jalen Green, who used to be the most athletic player on your team, who was also one of the who was also one of the most athletic players in the NBA already.
Yeah.
Now it's crazy. Like when you really think about the fact that Jalen Green is probably not the most athletic player on your team anymore, it's really wild. So you got 6'7" Amenthompson, 6'6" Jalen Green. You have a 6'7" Cam Whitmore, who is
Cam Whitmore 40+ inch vertical, by the way,
and he's like 230 pounds. Like this is like an Anthony Edwards type of build guy, more muscular though. And then with the height, the weight, the athleticism you have, and so like already you have 3 of the most athletic players in the NBA, and then you get to Jabari, who I think now Jabari's athleticism isn't the concern that it was for some people, right? Because now he can kind of thrive on doing the things that we feel like he can be really good at, which is 3-point shooting, which is getting his shot in the mid post, which is rebounding, which is defending. And so I think like when you have the right pieces around guys, you can really see their talent fully unlocked. And I think that's what the Rockets are building right now. And so now I'm more excited about having a guy like Jabari Smith Jr. now, because we do have all these other like S-tier athletes around him. And then of course, let me get to Alperen Sengun. Like if Alperen Sengun gets that ball, you have Cam Whitmore, who's a good slasher, right? He's a good slasher. He can cut to the basket. Alpi can find him. You have Amen. And Amen has already said that he's looking forward to playing with Alperen Sengun so that he can cut and get to the basket and get easy buckets. So, like this isn't a lineup that is ready to win right now. That's not what I'm saying. But like in a couple years, once these guys develop, and then we have a head coach now who has a vision, who has a plan, who's, we feel like is going to put these guys in the position to be successful. I think the future is very bright for the Houston Rockets. And then I haven't even gotten to Kevin Porter Jr., who now like he has the ability now to play off ball, which I think, and I'm not saying that because I don't think he can play on ball, but I think he's best utilized. He's best weaponized as a guy who doesn't have to set the table. He's a guy who he can just eat now. I don't have to set the table. I don't have to bring the ball up the court and have to worry about should I try to look for my shot, or should I try to find Jalen Green, or should I try to find Jabari Smith in the court? Like he don't have to worry about that anymore. That's not his responsibility. Maybe if I don't know what MA's philosophy is going to be on like can all guys push the ball up the court, because I know Silas was kind of okay with that, but I'm okay with Amon getting the ball. You and Jalen Green, if y'all are on the floor with him, y'all run the wings. And KPJ is an elite catch and shoot 3-point, shooter. Yeah. So you're going to have guys like trying to close out on him. And now he's devastating. He's going to the basket on a closeout, attacking that closeout. And now his secondary playmaking is like, feel how you want to feel about him as far as a primary playmaker. But KPJ as a secondary playmaker, to me, is a very like scary proposition for the rest of the NBA, because we've seen it. He can do it all. So I'm excited about this roster, man. And KJ Martin is probably like, if he stays on this team, just imagine a team where KJ Martin is probably now your 4th best athlete.
Yeah. It's pretty insane athleticism, especially coming from where the Rockets used to be in the days where they were competing, for championships. They weren't the most athletic team in the league. They were actually a pretty slow, plodding type of team. They didn't have a lot of assets outside of, or people that can play above the rim outside of players like Clint Capella. They were mostly a, methodical, play on the ground, not really play above the rim type team. And now you have like probably the most athletic team in the league. I mean, that's a huge difference from where you were a few years ago. And just really speaking on Kevin Porter Jr., it's kind of funny. He's almost like the reverse James Harden now. He's like James Harden was with the Thunder. That's kind of like the role that I think Kevin Porter Jr. can thrive in, coming off the bench, sometime even finishing games, being the primary ball handler off the bench. And sometimes maybe, he doesn't always necessarily have to play the point guard position the entire game. Maybe he comes in as a backup small forward. Maybe he comes in and finishes the game with Jalen Green and Amenthompson. There's a lot more flexibility now that you have with Kevin Porter Jr., who could fit that James Harden with the Thunder type role, where sometimes he may be the best player on the court, but he's not necessarily having to be the starter and have all that weight and all that responsibility thrust on upon him. He can just come off the bench, see how the game is being played, which a lot of times is better for some players. They can see exactly how the game is flowing from the bench and not have to, start off the game and be the guy and be the one to get everybody involved. He can just come in now and just play his game and not have to worry about all the other stuff because he has players that can actually take on that responsibility. So, in the end of the day, this might actually even extend Kevin Porter Jr.'s career if he's willing to take on that responsibility. And from everything I've heard, I think he wouldn't necessarily have a problem coming off the bench. Now, of course, he would love to start. I mean, everybody would love to start, but I mean, at the end of the day, you got to look at. There's been a lot of great players that have been fine coming off the bench. I mean, you can go all the way from your Manu Ginobili's to your if you want to go back further in the 90s with the Rockets with Sam Cassell. I mean, Sam Cassell was probably better than Kenny Smith, but at the time he was just better coming off the bench. So sometimes it just works out that sometimes some players are better coming off the bench. And I think that's the same thing with Kevin Porter Jr.
I'm glad you said that because that's the name that I was thinking. If Ime Udoka can sell him on the idea of like being the third guard off the bench, down the road, like you can still play 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You can still play 30 minutes a game, and like you said, like if he has it going, you let him close the game. We saw Manu Ginobili make a living and
Yes.
give teams absolute hell, night in and night out, coming off the bench, and we never really looked at him as like, oh, he's just a six man. Right?
Yeah.
He was an all-star coming off the bench. And I think Kevin Porter Jr., no matter what, a lot of people say, I think Kevin Porter Jr. has, he might not ever reach his potential and be an all-star, but I think he has all-star talent. And I think he gets a bad rap on this team. I spoke to people at the draft party yesterday and I'm not going to name drop, but I spoke to some people who would know who are around him, and they love that man. Like they think that, he gets a bad rap, among the fan base and in the media. They say that he's one of the nicest people on the team. I know you've even told me, like, when you do interviews, he's one of the most willing.
Best.
Yeah. And so I think it's almost time. It's to the point now. I think we have to let go of some of those, some of those notions that we have that Kevin Porter Jr. is a bad guy. And there are guys across the NBA, and we see it all the time, that are doing way worse things than Kevin Porter Jr. And it's like, it's almost it's unfair. So to me, unless he has another event, I think you have to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's matured and that he's grown up. I think it's not too much to ask, to just show a person some grace. We probably have not all done the same level of, things that we regret at a young age, but I can guarantee you that pretty much everybody that's watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, you've done something at some point in time in your life, and you're like, man, if I could go back, I would change this. And so at this point, I think it's fair to let's give him a clean slate, and until he proves us wrong or shows us otherwise, because everything that you hear about Kevin Porter Jr. behind the scenes is always positive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, I don't know everything. I don't have sources all over the place like some people, but from what I've seen, being in the locker room, being at the press conferences, number one, he is the best person at least in the first year that I covered the team, that as far as willingness to give interviews, always give some of the best answers you're going to get from anybody on the team. And just being in the locker room, seeing how he interacts with everybody, at least everybody I've seen, as far as his teammates, love him. They always showing him support. He's always showing them support. So from what I've seen, at least from the team perspective, they all love him all the way up into the front office. So, and we saw that. I don't know, people remember when Tim Fertitta was talking. I remember the press conference that ended, we were all getting up ready to leave, and he made it a point to stop everybody from leaving and say, Kevin Porter Jr. is one of the nicest guys that he has the pleasure to talk to, whether it's, during timeouts at the game or whatever it is, or after the game, before the game. He made it a point to say that. So if people really think that the Rockets going to go out of their way to get rid of Kevin Porter Jr. now, they're going to be in for a they're going to be in for a big surprise because the Rockets, unless it's some part of some big huge deal where they can bring in some star level player, I don't see the Rockets doing anything as far as trying to move Kevin Porter Jr. If anything, they're going to try actually even more now to get him involved in different ways outside of just being a point guard. So yeah, like you said, it's to the point now we just need to, not us, because we've always felt that Kevin Porter Jr. is a bad rap, but other people need to move on from the head honcho stuff and constantly looking for reasons not to like Kevin Porter Jr. Because at this point, it's almost like you're whistling into the wind. It's like, why are you continuing to do that? It's really not serving any purpose. Like you said, if he does something like doesn't show up to practice or in the middle of a game quits and leaves, that's fine. He definitely deserves criticism. But at this point, if you're looking for things to be mad at Kevin Porter Jr. about, it's really more about you than what Kevin Porter Jr. is doing or not doing at this point.
Yeah, and I know they're going to make some trades, eventually, because they're going to have to consolidate the talent on this team, especially if they're planning on bringing in some free agents. And like I would hate to see Kevin Porter Jr. go because I'm a believer in his talent, and it would be I would be sad, but at the same time, like I'm a Houston Rockets fan first and foremost. I don't like I get it. I mean, I'm a fan. I get attached to the players. Like I have some favorites on the team, and obviously, like if those guys were to be moved in a trade, like I wouldn't like it. But if the trade necessitates that player be in it, and it's a trade that improves the team, then I'm gonna be accepting of the trade, and it's kind of like Steve Francis and Cuttino Mobley. Like I like those guys, right? When they were on the Rockets. But when we traded them for Tracy McGrady, I was like, well, like at the time, like Tracy McGrady was, scoring 32 points a game. You know what I mean? And, he was being talked about as a guy who was kind of like similarly talented and on a similar level as Kobe Bryant. And so like, as much as I like Steve Francis and as much as I like Cuttino Mobley, and as much as I hated to see them go, I was fine with the trade, because we were getting Tracy McGrady. So I'm saying all that to say this, I'm not saying that Kevin Porter Jr. is going to be on this team in 2 or 3 years, because I don't know that. And, the GM maybe doesn't even know that. It just kind of depends on what kind of trade scenarios come across his desk or whatever. But like, I don't think even if they do end up moving Kevin Porter Jr. at some point, I think it's because he was needed in the trade, not because they were just trying to dump him and get rid of him, which I think that would probably be the perception among some people.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, anybody can get traded. I mean, Akeem Olajuwon got traded.
Marcus Smart just got traded from the
Marcus Smart, who did everything
Celtics,
he could for Boston, got traded. They didn't even tell him ahead of time. Anybody can get traded. So at the end of the day, I mean, it is what it is as far as a business. But let me put it like this: Kevin Porter Jr. is not at the top of the list of players that the Rockets are thinking about trading. I can pretty much guarantee you that. I want to move on to the next topic, and it's kind of why some people thought Cam Whitmore failed so far in the draft, and it was possible medical concerns. Before we get into it, I want to play this clip from Rafael Stone last night, who talked a little bit about if they had any concerns when it came to Cam Whitmore's health.
We don't. I mean, I think Cam physical in Chicago. Every team had access to it. Our doctors had access to it. We were very comfortable with it. I think he's going to have, knock on wood, I think he's well positioned to have a really good career. So, I guess different people have different opinions, and I don't know why any other team is doing what they're doing. But again, I know we're really excited to have him.
So, of course, reports started to come out about Cam Whitmore, and the reason why he was following was because medical concerns, and he didn't have a good workout, and he didn't have good interviews. Me personally, interviews and workouts are overrated, especially ones because teams are following these players all year long, even sometime before they even get into college. So no team's going to base their pick off of just one workout or one interview. So a lot to me that was overblown. Cam Whitmore had one medical issue, at least that I know of, last year, and that was beginning of the season where he missed the first 7 games because of a thumb injury, which is kind of a standard injury that anybody could have. It wasn't anything major. He ended up playing the rest of the year and was the Big East player of the freshman of the year. So and had a solid season overall. So to me, I mean, unless something else comes up, I don't see any major concerns with his health. The Rockets did their due diligence, I'm sure, as far as his health is concerned. But Vader, as far as you, do you have any concerns about his health going forward, or any concerns that thinking why did he fall so far? That what is something else the other teams know that the Rockets may not know?
So I know like Jonathan Givony got on, I think it was ESPN last night, and he said part of the reason he felt like he fell far was because once he dropped past like number 9, a lot of those teams hadn't even worked him out because nobody expected him to fall that far. So it kind of like came to the point, what do I trust this like information that I'm hearing that he might have some medical concerns, or do I just go with my board? These are guys that I've had in my building. These are guys that I worked out. These are guys that I kind of fell in love with through the draft process, and I like them. So should I take them, or should I take a guy who I'm hearing, he doesn't interview well. I'm hearing that you know what I mean? Like, so Gavoni had mentioned that was probably one of the main reasons why he fell, because he was like, once you fall past that area of teams where you've worked out for, those teams that haven't actually seen you and gotten you in their building, they might not take you because you're kind of a big question mark. So I think that was one of the main things. Just like you, I kind of heard that when the teams he did work out for that passed on him, they didn't really like he didn't really interview well. They said that he wasn't really trying as hard, going hard during the workout. And they said that he kind of has a history of doing this going back to Villanova, supposedly. And this is just stuff that I saw reported, that he did not practice hard, but they said that like in the game, he would play super hard. So he didn't practice hard, but he played hard in the game. So he kind of has like the Allen Iverson thing going, like practice, not a game, We're talking practice. So I'm thinking, and that, to me, that's coaching. That's holding guys accountable. I think Emi Udoka is not gonna have any issue of like getting on Cam Whitmore and being like, hey, bro, like if you don't get out here and bust your tail, you're not gonna ever step on this floor. You're gonna be down in Rio Grande Valley, until you figure this out. And so, like, I'm not worried about that aspect. I think he's 18 years old, so there's going to be some growth and maturity things that he's going to have to learn along the way. And you know how it is out here on this AAU circuit. A lot of these guys are pampered and they're coddled and they're told how great they are. And a lot of these coaches are afraid to really get on these guys because you want the best talent on your team. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that that's what happened, but I've been around some of these guys, and like they kind of don't always do everything that they probably need to do to be at their best. But I think now that he's going into a situation where we have like a foundation in place, we have a coaching staff in place. We're probably going to bring in some veterans. I'm not so much worried about him not being a good practice player. I think that's going to work itself out. And then as far as the injury stuff, and this is not something that I have corroborated, so I'm not going to speak on what it is because I don't know if this is 100% true. But I did hear from somebody at the draft party yesterday that they heard from a trusted source that he may have had medical issues that they're worried about down the road. But like right now he's fine, but it's kind of like something that might be kind of a red flag down the road. But I don't even know if that's true or not. How one person says something and it gets passed around. But the thing that makes me not worried about that, and I'll tell you what it is. The thing that makes me completely unconcerned with that information that I got is the fact that I know Rafael Stone was trying to trade up to still pick him. Like Rafael Stone was not trying to sit at 20 and wait for him to fall to 20. He was trying to like package assets and move back up into the draft to get a guy. And so like, why would you do that, for a guy who you felt like might be medically red flag? So I'm not too much concerned about that. And I think a lot of his issues right now are just, being an 18-year-old kid who has all the talent in the world, who has like pretty much you can get anything you want. And I think the Rockets will get him right. Like I feel like through the interview process and the workout process that he had with the Rockets, that they felt comfortable enough and confident enough in him that they were willing to, like I said, give up assets to move up and pick him higher than 20. It just so happens that he fell all the way down there. They weren't able to trade up, and they still got the guy that they wanted. And I'm super excited about it. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up about the Rockets possibly wanting to move up into, move up in the top 10. That's how confident they were. And I want to kind of play that clip because Stone talked about, I asked him about the possibility of them trading 20 coming into the draft. And he talked about, how they felt so confident in Cam that that's the person they wanted, that they were willing to move up into the top 20 and that they are top 10. And they had offers, attractive offers, is his exact words, that to trade out of the pick 20 if a player like Cam Whitmore wasn't available, but they would rather have Cam than some of the other trade offers. So
And wait, before you play that, Lachard, also I think it was the Pacers. Don't quote me on that, but like there was another team who was trying to trade back up somewhere between like 10 and 19 to get Cam, and they said that nobody would do a deal with them. But the Rockets weren't the only team that was trying to trade up to get Cam. It's just that like those teams that were between that range were kind of so set on the guy that they wanted that they were unwilling to part with those picks. So like, if you're a Rockets fan, I think you at this point you have to be super excited about the Cam Whitmore pick because we even heard that they might even like trade out of that pick altogether, like you said. And so, for them to keep that pick and for you to bring in a 6'7", 232 pound explosive player who can actually also shoot the basketball. Like he's not just a dunker, right? He can actually he has the ability to, maybe one day be a 40% 3-point shooter to go along with his slashing and dunking ability. So anyway, you can roll that clip, man.
Yeah. And here's Stone.
Yeah, we were considered trading it. But both ways, like we were active. We were actually trying to trade up. But we always intended to try and trade up in this draft. Didn't know that we weren't successful, so guess that was going to fail. But that was when we thought Cam was going to go in the top 6 or 7 picks. So we thought that there was maybe some strategy that made sense for us in getting a little higher. And so, but we also talked about if that wasn't successful trading out, if we didn't like somebody at the pick, and we were talking to a number of teams about what that would look like. And some of those potential transactions were very attractive, but again, not nearly as attractive as picking Cam.
So, I mean, as you see, he not even just top 10, they were saying top 6 or 7. That's how much confidence they had in Cam Whitmore. And like you said, they had their doctors look at him in the combine in Chicago. I'm sure they've had their doctors look at him since then. So they seem pretty confident that whatever health concerns that some other people may be having, they don't necessarily have those health concerns, or at least they don't feel that it's enough to where they wouldn't use that pick 20. I think it was a huge benefit that the Rockets had that second pick because some teams didn't have a second pick.
Thank you, Eric Gordon.
That's why the Rockets, thank you, Eric Gordon. That's why the Rockets were perfectly fine taking a chance on a player that every other team in the first 19 or 18 picks decided that they didn't want to go with him. So you can see Stone, and of course Stone is a lawyer. He's always seems confident. He's always going to give you stone face. He doesn't give you much reaction, but they seem pretty confident that whatever issues other teams may have had with Cam Whitmore, they didn't necessarily, share that opinion.
Yeah, so like I said, man, I'm super stoked. And then like in the clip, I hadn't even watched that clip yet, but for the fact that he said that they still believed that Cam Whitmore was going to be drafted top 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So like just think about that. So on the Houston Rockets board, on their draft board, they pretty much probably had him in the top 7. I think it's pretty reasonable to come to that conclusion if they thought he was going to be picked in the top 6 or 7.
Absolutely. And I guarantee if Cam Whitmore wasn't still there at 20, they would have traded that pick because they had offers for that 20th pick, probably for a veteran type of player from some other team, or maybe even just moving back further and getting more picks or something like that. But they were going to trade that number 20 pick. And I guarantee And Stone said he was shocked that he was even available at 20. Um, one more thing I want to move into before we finish the show, something that's kind of hard to answer now, but we're going to talk about it anyway, and we're going to talk about it more throughout the uh, off season. What are the chances that Cam Whitmore starts the season at small forward? What do you think he needs to do to be able to start, or do you think he has any chance of starting? And it's, at this point, it's really more either KJ Martin or probably even Tari Eason.
I will. I hate to say this, but I think there's like a 0% chance that he starts.
Yeah.
And the reason being, I even felt that way if they picked him at 4. And the reason being is he's so young. He is super young. Like he is younger than Jabari. Like when we drafted Jabari, and Jabari was one of the I think top 8 youngest players in the NBA last year. And so and we saw how he struggled initially. And I think a lot of that had to do with just his youth and getting accustomed to the NBA. I think that Cam Whitmore is not and this is one of the things that people said that was a knock on him. Super talented, super athletic. He can shoot. Had his feel is not that great. And by feel, just is passing, stuff like that, knowing where to hit guys and, just like little things that you need to be better at to be a functional team basketball player. Like he's a good individual basketball player, but he has to work on becoming a guy who's I hate to use this word, a winning basketball player. And I think that, I think a G League stint would be great for him, to be perfectly honest with you. I just can't see him coming in right now as an 18. He'll probably be 19 by the time the season starts. I don't remember when his birthday is, but I don't think he's going to be better than Tari Eason. Like we saw what Tari Eason did for the team last year. Like even you can say what you want to say about his layups, and his mom even says it, so it's okay. You can critique his layups, but what you cannot critique is that man's hustle, his drive, his will to win, his defense, his rebounding, his ability to steal the basketball. Like he brought intangibles to the floor that I don't think Cam Whitmore at this point in time is going to contribute. If KJ Martin is still on this team, I think KJ Martin is a better player than him right now, to be honest with you. But I just think that the Cam Whitmore play is a future play. And so I think, maybe as soon as next year, he's a guy who we're putting in and we like, man, we really got the steal of the draft. But I don't think we're going to be saying that this year. I think he needs a little seasoning. He needs a little growth.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I've seen some people already put him in the starting lineup, but I just don't see that happening. One thing you're not going to do is you're not going to outwork Tari Eason. You mentioned earlier about Cam Whitmore, some reports allegedly saying that he doesn't work as hard in practice. If he's going to eventually get in that starting lineup or get major minutes, he's going to have to earn it, because players like Tari Eason, they don't take plays off. They don't take practices off. He does whatever he needs to do to get on that court. So if you're going to outwork Tari Eason, you're going to have to really put in some work. You're not going to be able to. That's the thing. Cam Whitmore, and like you were talking about with AAU, and not necessarily, it pertains to Cam Whitmore, but when you're the best player and you can just do it alone, you can do things that other players can't do when you're younger. You're just more talented than they are. You're just bigger than they are. You're just faster than they are. Then it's easy for you to just go out and play. But when you get to the NBA, you got every player in the league is just as talented as you. Most of them are more talented as you coming in as a rookie, and they're just as big, they're just as fast, and some of them may work even harder than you do. So he's going to have to put in the work to get onto the court, because, like you said, we know Tari Eason, if KJ Martin is still here, you're not going to outwork.
Oh yeah, those are two dogs. There is no way I think he's going to learn really quickly in practice that, hey, these guys are better than me right now. I got work to do, and they're not going to take it easy on him. I know for a fact, I don't know Tari Eason personally, but just from talking to his mom and just seeing how he plays, he's going to see Cam Whitmore, even though that's his teammate and they might be friends.
They're going to go at him.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that man wants my job. I'm good. Yep. No, you're going to have to take my job from me. I'm not I am the starting small forward on this team, and you're going to have to wrestle it away from my dead, cold, lifeless hand.
I mean, because you think about it, now trades may clear up a lot of this because they're going to have to trade
Oh
somebody.
yeah,
One of
absolutely.
the forwards is going to have to be traded. Some of the guards aren't going to be back. Probably like Dacian Nix. I don't know about Josh Christopher. We don't know about Jayshawn Tate. But at least for now, the team they have now, you're not going to outwork Jayshawn Tate. You're not going to work KJ Martin. You're not going to outwork Tari Eason. So he's going to absolutely have to earn it. And I know some people may be shocked, but like you said, there's a chance he could start off in the G League. I mean, unless the Rockets make some major moves, they have multiple forwards that are, Jay Tate didn't even play last year. And he and the coaching staff, and maybe this coaching staff is different, but that coaching staff loved Jay Tate. So if Jay Tate is still somehow on his team, it's not a guarantee that he's not going to get minutes. So there's a chance that Cam Whitmore could possibly start off in the G League. Now, maybe he does what Alperen did a couple of years ago when everybody thought that he was going to start off in the G League, where he was just too good that the Rockets couldn't put him in the G League. But there's a possibility, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Maybe he starts off at the G League just to get his feet wet and so they can get 30 minutes a game. Because to start the season for the Rockets, he's not getting 30 minutes a game. I can guarantee you that.
And I'm gonna tell you what, I would actually watch G League games. I know you used to be big. I know you actually still watch G League games,
Yeah.
but Ty Washington, if he's still here and he's not with the big club, if you see a Ty Washington and Cam Whitmore combination down in G League,
Yeah.
I think they might have another like G League championship coming their way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny we ain't even talking about Ty Washington in this whole point guard mix. That's another situation with there. So the Rockets have some talented players. And one more quick thing before we wrap up the show, something that Adrian Wojnarowski brought up last night towards the end of or during the draft coverage. He talked about the Rockets being a serious contender for Brook Lopez. Of course, we're going to talk a lot more about free agency in the next couple of weeks as we get close to the actual free agent period, but I wanted to get your opinion on that because for me, the Rockets just seem like the go-to team for any player that wants to get leverage over their team because they have so much cap space. I just don't see the fit for a Brook Lopez. Not that Brook Lopez wouldn't be great for the Rockets, but are they really going to put Alperen Sengun on the bench? Because Brook Lopez, I know some people were saying Brook Lopez would come to the Rockets, a team that's been on the lottery the last 3 years for more money so he can come off the bench. I don't see it coming off a great season that he just had. I don't see a player at his point willing to come off the bench for a team that was just in a lottery. But maybe I could be wrong. But I just don't necessarily see the fit for certain players that they keep bringing up for the Rockets. Even a Brook Lopez, paying him $26 million a year, and he's in his late 30s. To come over play a position that you already have a player that you're really high on in Alperen Sengun. But what's kind of your opinion just on that report in general?
So I like Brook Lopez on this team. I don't know if that's the best place to allocate your resources because he's going to demand a lot of money. And first and foremost, like, why would he leave Milwaukee? You know what I mean? Like you said, this may just be like him trying to get more money, which like I'm not mad at that. Get your bag. You know what I mean? Like he's been in the league a long time, but like you said, you're coming to this team to come off the bench. Like I can't get behind any scenario where as much as I like Brook Lopez, he's a great defensive player. Which who would have thought? Like I remember when that dude came in the NBA, he was just like an offensive dude, and like,
wasn't a 3-point shooter either.
He wasn't a 3-point. Like he's completely like changed the way he plays basketball over the years, and it's kind of crazy. It's extended his career. He's had like crazy longevity even after having like sustained some injuries, and so like it's pretty cool to see a guy like that kind of reinvent himself. But like, so I like this version of Brook Lopez. He brings the type of defense that the Rockets need. He anchored the defense. And then he also would, ironically, he would space the floor. So he'd give us like two huge things in our lineup. That being said, like I just can't get behind an idea of benching Alperen Sengun at 21 years old when he's showing so much promise. And like we don't know, he supposedly grew another like almost another inch. I'm just kind of really. I really want to lean into like figuring out what Alperen Sengun is this upcoming season. I think we need to know, because like his rookie contract is going to be up for extension at that point. And, you know, you need to know, if is this guy going to be, can he be a hub of your offense, or can he be like a second option in your, you know, like we don't really know, because they didn't really consistently do it. We saw that at times when it happened, it looked really good. And then we don't know, like, if like Ime Udoka mentioned that he didn't like the way he was being deployed defensively last year. So is there a way that he can get the best out of Alperen Sengun defensively, and also like make him look like a competent defender? Because if that happens, like, we know what he can do offensively. So like, now if Alperen Sengun isn't getting played off the floor, and he's actually like a guy who you can have in, you know, close games for you, you know, in a playoff situation somewhere down the road, then he suddenly, to me, becomes like a guy, like, you can't trade him, you can't move him, you can't let him go. Like, if they can figure out how to mask his defensive issues or whatever, or at least clean some of his footwork, like whatever it is, right? Because he's already said that he's identified some things from the film that he would like to change for Alperen. So I gotta see that. And so like the Brook Lopez thing, like I said, it's super interesting to me. But like, would he come here to come off the bench, right?
Yeah.
Would you stop starting on a team that's in contention to come here and come off the bench on a team that is going to be hopefully fighting for a play-in? Like, and I'm just being super optimistic right now, because I'm hoping that whatever stuff they do in free agency kind of puts us in a situation where we can at least fight for a 10 seed, right?
Yeah.
So like, like I said, I love Brook Lopez as a player. I think he'd be a great fit here as far as what he would bring to the court. However, I just don't know if it's a fit, you know, from a personnel standpoint, when you consider, like, is he going to be okay with coming off the bench? Are you going to pay a guy $25 million to come off the bench if he is okay with that? You know, it's just like a lot of like things outside of just like is he good? Would he be good on the Rockets? Because the answer is yes. He would definitely be good on the team. Maybe spend that money somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is yes, you have the money to spend, but you want to spend it wisely. And we'll find out that pretty soon, a couple of weeks, free agency period will kick off, and that's going to be the next big step for the Rockets. We also, of course, will be covering that. We will be out at the draft introduction, or they're actually going to be introducing Cam Whitmore and Amenthompson on Monday. We'll be out at that, covering that. Of course, we'll have the full press conference up on YouTube. We already have the full press conference of Rafael Stone from last night, talking about the draft, up on our YouTube page, the Rocket Fuel Pod YouTube page. So definitely make sure you check it out. We appreciate everybody that gives us support on the YouTube page, because we are up to 70 subscribers after, for some reason that I won't go too far into here. For some reason, our last page was kicked out. We were approaching 100 subscribers, so we appreciate everybody coming back, and maybe some new people joining. So definitely make sure you subscribe to the page, because we're going to be having some great guests coming up this next month. We have Nate Griffin of Fox 26 coming on the show next month in July. We have Craig Ackerman coming on. Hopefully we have some collaborations happening next month as well. So we have some big shows coming up in July. We'll be out at all the press conferences during this off season. So make sure that you're checking out our YouTube page and checking out audio on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. We always appreciate support, and we will definitely check you back for our next episode of Rockets Fuel Podcast.